Hi everybody, Adrian Plus here again.
Yes, and Bridget, unbelievably again, and it's number 54.
Number 54. Outside there's a wonderful grey sky and the wind's blowing and the
Oh
trees are
my
crashing.
goodness, absolutely. I don't know where you are, but the wind has blown away. My poor little fruit frame has fallen down and everything's swirling around.
Your fruit frame never stood a chance, to be absolutely honest.
No, it wasn't the best fruit frame.
Listen, this jigsaw, just in case for people who don't know, we've been doing this jigsaw for the last 8 weeks, and we finally finished it all but 3 pieces. There's just one thing that's occurred to me about this. It's a jigsaw of a painting by Monet, which is called the Japanese Bridge or something like that. The Japanese Garden Bridge, I can't quite remember. Painted in 1899 by Monet, probably several times.
Oh, so many times, yeah.
Yeah, in oils on canvas. Now, until the picture was almost finished, the jigsaw, I mean, all I saw was a jigsaw. But I've almost suddenly realised what an incredible piece of work this is, because when you look closely at the way he did it, there are this is oils, tiny little pieces of colour, tiny little marks all over that canvas that when you put them together and you stand at a very short distance from it, you see water and you see flowers floating on it and you see a garden. And I am in awe of it. I really, really am.
Well, I think Claude Monet would be very pleased to finally hear you say something positive about his painting.
I think he would probably not even be interested in hearing what I think. But
No.
it was an unusual surprise for me, and it's in line with a lot of other things that have happened to me. Where you get a rather nice surprise about something that seemed to be one thing, and then gave you something else.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I wonder whether that occurs to anybody else. You mean something that you set out, we set out to do this jigsaw, and I have to say, as you probably have picked up, we hated it in the doing of it. It was a labour not of love, wasn't it, for a lot of the time?
It was very
but
hard.
Out of it, something else came.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder, it would be great to hear if anybody else has had that experience in any way, really, wouldn't it?
Well, you have, and I'm going to ask you, and I hope you remember this when I say this to you, to tell people the story about Derek.
Yeah, well, of course I will. I'm not quite sure how it fits, but that'll be interesting, really. He was somebody...
I think this story ends with something really unexpected.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Derek was in his early 20s, and we met him some time ago, and we met his mum as well. He was charming. He was very friendly, very kind, and one thing about him was he had quite severe learning difficulties. And we heard about something that really made a difference to Derek and to his mum, in fact, because although he was always, as I say, very kind and in many ways outgoing, physically he was not confident at all. He was quite big and not very quick in moving, and he didn't like himself very much. And his mum wanted Derek to be the very best Derek he could possibly be. She loved him to bits, didn't she?
Oh, she adored him.
And she said what she needed was to find some way of him developing his physical confidence. And then she heard that a sort of low-key local Paralympic event was going to happen, and she thought, that'll do him, that'll be good for him. Well, Derek didn't agree at all, and on the day of the races he was not in the best of moods, and the first race was a running race. And apparently Derek started off head down very miserably, but just realised after a while he was actually going past everybody else. And he did. He went past everyone else. He went through the tape at the end and he won the race and he got a gold medal. And now, of course, Derek was feeling great, especially as the next race was a walking race. So this time he set off at a pretty good pace past everybody again. Just before he got to the tape at the end, he stopped, and the person coming along just behind went through the tape and got the gold medal, and Derek came second, and Derek got the silver medal. And his mum said, "Derek, why did you stop? You could have had 2 gold medals." And Derek looked at her as though she was just a bit lacking in understanding and said, "Ma'am, I wanted 2 medals of 2 different colours."
It's a wonderful story, isn't it?
It's wonderful because it takes everything that we kind of set into our minds is important. The gold medal, the coming first, and chucks that truth up in the air and it lands somewhere else.
Straight out of him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not forced. And it reminds me of what C.S. Lewis said about when we ask God certain questions, it's like us saying, what shape is yellow?
Yes.
You don't even really understand the question,
Yes.
let alone the answer.
Yeah.
And I do love those unexpected things. And I know both of us have always been very keen on looking at the career of Jesus, short though it was, in terms of ministry, and the unexpected things that happened there, because you couldn't really keep track of him, could you?
No, it's certainly the people travelling with him couldn't keep track of him. They kept thinking they knew what he would do, and he kept doing something else.
Well, it hasn't changed at all. But one of my favourite stories is the one where I think it's Jesus' own house, I seem to recall. And it's a busy, busy day because there are many, many people lining up outside and filling the house, all of whom want to be healed. And unknown to all those people, 4 fellows have carried their friend up onto the roof. Their friend is on a stretcher because he can't walk. And they make a hole in the ceiling.
Yes, that's right.
And they let their friend down on the stretcher. And Jesus, when this fellow arrives at his feet, I don't know if he was surprised or not. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, he forgives him everything he's ever done and tells him to get up on his feet. And this fellow walks off, probably with 4 very triumphant friends who
It's
done a very
through the
good
crowd,
job.
all still waiting.
Now, what intrigues me is that there's probably a whole raft of opinion in certain parts of the church which ask the question sort of independently, will come up with a very different story, right? So in the news story, Jesus would be there in the middle doing healings and stuff or whatever he wanted to do, and the 4 fellows would break open the roof, down would come their friend, and Jesus would look at him and he would make the sound that is only ever made by Christians.
What's
He
that
would
then?
say, yeah, yeah. Which means, yes, there is some positives here, but actually it's rather inappropriate. And he'd say, okay, yeah, okay, so did you ask if you could break open the roof? No? Oh, okay, right. Have you paid anyone for repair of the roof? No, I thought not. Look, there are 200 people out there. They're queuing. Do you think it's right to just jump the queue and, just come up to the front like this? No, thought not. Okay, here's what you do. You pull him back up, you repair the roof, or you make sure, you've paid a good sum for it to be fixed. Go and see Peter. He'll give you a number. And eventually, when you get to the front of the queue, I might be able to help. But of course, he didn't do that because the 2 features of Jesus that attract all those who feel they know him are, first of all, that he loved ingenuity exercised for the benefit of others.
Yeah.
He loved strength of compassion and love that forced people to do things that nobody else would do.
He loved passion, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he loved the passion in people.
Yeah. There is a bit, isn't there? There's a bit in me that thinks, well, if I'd been standing in that queue, I would have been a bit fed up.
Well, you would.
And it's having to face those, if you like, almost unfairnesses, isn't it? That some people we love get healed, some don't. All those sort of questions, really. But allowing that there is something so extraordinary about God that he really does do the thing that, as far as God is concerned, is the most important thing in that moment.
And, I know people would have to agree with this once they've dismissed it and then rethought it. But the unfairness of God is the greatest gift
Absolutely.
we could possibly have.
Absolutely. It's
So
the big one,
we need
isn't
to
it?
chew on that a bit.
Absolutely.
Now, in one of my more recent books, which was called The Shadow Doctor, I wrote two novels about the Shadow Doctor, and in the first one, we meet the Shadow Doctor, and I want to do a little bit from it with Bridget.
Well, it's a really important thing to you, isn't it, the Shadow Doctor stories, because they've explored to some extent where you've got to in your thinking, where you used to think.
They do. I don't know how important that is, but for me...
Well, for you it was.
I know, for me it is, because there are two main characters. One is a young fellow called Jack. Well, young by
He's about 30. He's
about
very,
30.
very young.
Very young. And Jack has been a Christian for years, and it's kind of failing. Everything's going wrong inside him, and he just doesn't know what to do. Now, Shadow Doctor is in his late 60s and has found a very new and unusual way to deal with the flow of faith in his life.
Yes.
So Jack first hears about the Shadow Doctor in a letter written to him by his grandmother, Alice, who he loved very much. And by the time he gets the letter, she's died. And she tells him two things that quite surprise him. One is that after the death of Jack's grandfather, William, she decided she wanted to end her life because living without him for ages and ages and ages was almost unthinkable. The other thing she tells him is that one stormy night she went down to the beach and she sat in a little shelter there. And when she sat in the shelter, she suddenly realized there was another man in the shelter, and this man was the Shadow Doctor. Mm-hmm. After a bit of shock, and because of the way he was, she calmed down, she settled down, and as they talked, she told the Shadow Doctor a great big fat lie, because the Shadow Doctor said, well, why are you down here on the beach? And she said, I've just come down to before having dinner with my husband William, because we live up there, up on the main road there, in a flat there, and I'll be going back up in a minute to have our meal with him. When she leaves, the Shadow Doctor says, well, I'll walk you up to the door of your flat. And she says, okay. So when they reach the door of the flat, that's when things begin to get a little difficult for Alice. And what you'll hear now is Alice reading her letter to Jack, and also the actual occasion when she is with the Shadow Doctor.
Well, the thing is, Jack, that when we reached my front door, the man called Doc said...
You know, Alice, I would really love to meet William, if that's possible.
Well, Jack, I froze. I mean, there was no William. William was dead, and I had lied to this perfect stranger. But never mind, I thought. A quick excuse. Dinner as good as ready. So good of you to walk me back. That sort of thing, okay? What did I actually say, Jack? Oh, yes, that would be lovely. Come in and meet William. There's enough food for two of us. Oh, Jack. Let me tell you what my unexpected visitor saw when he came in and sat in the big armchair by the window. At the other end of the room, my gate-leg table was set up for supper. There were 2 places laid, 2 mats, 2 wine glasses, 2 tumblers, 2 side plates, 2 embroidered serviettes rolled up in my mother's special silver holders, and standing on the placemat furthest from the kitchen hatch was a photograph facing across the table. It was a full face portrait of my William. I'd been doing it all through that wretched January, you see, Jack, laying up for William and chatting to him as I cooked and ate my meal. What a very sad person you must think me, a silly old biddy playing games like a child to fill up the gap in her life. Well, My guest just sat in his chair, quite relaxed, waiting for me to say something, and I felt like a very little girl, standing by the table, nervously pitter-pattering one of my hands rapidly against the other, knowing I would have to say something. William died a long time ago, and there's only me here.
Well, yes, I sort of thought that must be the case, Alice.
Oh, why? Whatever gave me away?
Oh, not very clever detective work, I'm afraid. When you asked me in, you said there was enough food for two. So, obviously.
Of course I did. Oh, how very, very, very silly of me.
But I'll tell you what really puzzles me, Alice, is why you asked me in at all.
Oh, well, look, I really don't want you to misunderstand what I'm going to say now. Shall I call you Doc?
Doc's fine,
Doc.
yeah.
Okay. Well, the thing is, Doc, that although I only met you half an hour ago, for some reason, I want you to believe I'm a person who tells the truth. Now, I know my short track record isn't very good, and I started very badly down there on the beach, but I wanted to, I suppose I wanted to make it all right. Oh, my goodness, that sounds very stupid. Does that sound stupid? After all, there's absolutely
Alice.
Yes.
What are we having for supper?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, would cheese on toast with bacon on top be okay?
A bacon rabbit. That would be wonderful.
Good. Well, I'd better just clear William away.
Clear William away. Good idea.
Oh, dear Jack. As we sat at my little table, I babbled on and on about my life and my marriage and you, Jack, and my chronic loneliness. And finally, when we were settled in comfortable chairs, nibbling chocolate straws, I told him about my decision to end my life. Well, the thing is, Doc, tomorrow is coming, and after that, possibly hundreds of tomorrows, and I don't want all those days. In the end, you don't get much back from a photograph. Well, I can only see two choices: stay and suffer, or step into the darkness. It's not a neurotic issue. My marbles are all intact. It's practical, and I have made my choice. So, do you think it's the right one, Doc?
Well, Alice, I have to say that I think you probably made the wrong decision.
I'm sorry. Are you saying you think I should kill myself?
Well, I mean, of the two options you mentioned, there's definitely the one I would go for is the one that you've selected. Living the rest of your life in misery, or just taking one simple step to make it all go away. Well, there's no contest, is there? That's what I think.
Oh, Jack, I felt as if something had ended badly, coldly. Just one comfortable platitude, surely. I couldn't think of anything to say, and then Doc broke the silence.
You know, Alice, there is one other alternative that you may not have considered.
I prepared myself, Jack, to be kind but dismissive. And what, Doc, is that?
Scrabble.
Oh, Jack, it was like hearing the punchline of an incredibly funny joke. I burst into uncontrollable laughter. It was so embarrassing. And then when I'd calmed down a bit, I apologised, but Doc just smiled.
So, what do you think about my Scrabble option?
I'm sorry, Doc. Are you seriously suggesting I join a Scrabble club or something?
Oh, good Lord, no, you've already lost the will to live. No, why make it worse? No, Alice, that is not what I'm suggesting at all. What I'm suggesting is, and listeners, if you want to know how Scrabble saved Alice's life, you would have to read the book. So there we are. You never know what's going to happen. You never know how things might change.
No, you don't.
It's worth thinking on.
It is, and we have sometimes said to people, if you can't pray and you're in a mess, get 4 friends. Get 4 friends to mentally and prayerfully hold you on a stretcher and bring you to Jesus. And you never know, he might accept their passion on your behalf.
Or he might suggest a game of Scrabble.
Well, there you
have
go.
to wait and see.
Or jigsaws.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.